The Game Plan is a production of Disability Rights California, a space to strategize, organize, and posterize for the future of the disability rights movement. For more information on our work, please visit us at disabilityrightsca.org.
Hello, everyone. This is Eric Harris, and I am with the Game Plan at Disability Rights California. We are really thrilled to have an amazing guest, Shay Arigbede from Northern California, with us today to talk about the Paralympics. The Winter Paralympics just ended this past week, and to just talk about sled hockey, the U.S. team, the success that they've had, and we'll get into some film stuff too because we've had some really cool things happening in the film space with the Oscars this past weekend, and some cool results, some great movies that have come out over the last year, and just the current circumstances for disabled folks when it comes to film. So, welcome, Shay. Really, really glad to have you.
Thank you again for having me, my man. Good morning.
Good morning. And just so folks know, this is kind of an ongoing theme, but I've known Shay for whew, almost 25 years now. We were wheelchair basketball teammates for during high school and college, and have stayed connected over the years, and really, my brother for a really long time. Just appreciate all that he is, all that he does, and what he represents in our community, just across the board. So it's wonderful to have you, man.
And likewise, my man. Sentiments the same over here. Absolutely.
Definitely, definitely. So let's talk about the Winter Paralympics. It's been a journey, man. Like you and I, back when we were in high school, used to get frustrated because it was impossible to find the Paralympics. Like we
Absolutely.
literally had to search every internet stream that we could possibly find to look up the Paralympics. Can you just talk a little bit about the Paralympics, kind of how far it's come and like where we are now?
From when we were in high school, I mean, it's amazing how far it's come, how much content you can find readily, easily on the web, whether it's the summer games or the winter games. I think it's amazing. I think what it's going to do is just kind of spur on even more development, even more interest in the games and the events. When a kid who maybe is recently disabled or maybe is, who knows, been disabled since birth, things like that, which was, a lot of people that we knew, the ability to go online and see other people disabled who are like you, who are competing at the highest level for their countries, I think that's an invaluable thing. And I'm so happy for the amount of content that is streaming. It's almost like this is part of what the internet was made for, in my opinion. It just had to get to a level of technology where you can stream all of this content. But the place that we are now, I think it's amazing. Just the ability to be able to find things, to watch things, to be able to learn about different events, different sports, amazing. And it's come a long way.
Man, it's so real, and it's a trip because Peacock has gotten so sophisticated. I mean, no, obviously no free ads, right? Um, but because the Paralympics are on NBC, at least for now, and on Peacock, Peacock has gotten so sophisticated where you can literally go on an app and click on a sport, a Paralympic sport that you want to check out, and just watch, the coverage, watch the footage, replays, all of the things, man. So it's just incredible and mind-boggling as two guys who've been involved in sports our whole lives essentially. To be able to see this is just an amazing development.
I would add, I know, in the past for certain events, for certain, whether it might be the summer games, the winter games, in the past, there'd be times where you'd have events that there wouldn't even be commentary.
Mm.
Now, NBC is making sure not only do we provide commentary, but we provide color commentary from someone who has, direct kind of either participation in the sport or is a Paralympic medalist themselves.
Mm,
So they really, I feel like they really, really stepped up their detail, their attention to detail, and they really have focused on kind of the experience of the viewer and trying to, really kind of present a full-fledged experience of the Paralympics on the web. So,
mm, fantastic, man. And I think this most recent Paralympic Games had record-breaking numbers in terms of folks who were viewing, and it had millions and millions of viewers, and it's just continues to grow. So that's just fantastic. Absolutely. Um, let's talk a little bit about sled hockey. Sled hockey, of course, is one of the events. First of all, as a brother from the East Bay, how did you get involved in sled hockey? What kind of brought you to coming to sled hockey? You and I played basketball as kids, but why was sled hockey the a sport that really kind of pulled you in?
well, I mean, as you know, my man, I've always been a movie person and I've
Mm,
always really been a sports person. Somehow I got a hold of a VHS of Mighty Ducks 2 when I was a young kid, and the sport of hockey just kind of sang to me. It
mm,
took a long time for me to figure out within the Bay Area, within Northern California, where could I go to participate.
mm,
It took some digging, it took some Googling, which
mm.
at the time, the only place that I could play was in Roseville, which is kind of in your neck of the woods. And that's how I got into it. I was really, really trying to figure out how to still play competitive wheelchair basketball. And I wasn't really, really able to find, the same kind of resources that I had before when I was playing in high school and things like that. I
Mm,
actually was on a whim one day watching ESPN. I think it was around the time of one of the Paralympic Games, and it was also around the time of the anniversary of Chernobyl, the whole kind of
mm,
accident that happened in Europe. And there was a player at the time. His name was Alexei Salomon, and he was, I believe, the captain of the Paralympic team at the time. And
mm,
ESPN did a feature on Alexei Salomon, and it was the first time I was able to really see, okay, what sled hockey looked like. I had never really seen what the sport looked like, and when I saw it, I was just like, this
mm.
is up my alley. I have to try it. And like I said, I did some Googling, found a place to play in Roseville. But that's, how, from the East Bay, I was able to find the game. So
Man, that's incredible. That is incredible. And for those who maybe have never seen it, how would you describe it? And two, what is different about the sport that like maybe somebody who appreciates able-bodied hockey might not, kind of register?
for the most part, I mean, the sport is a modified, obviously, version of ice hockey. You're taking participants who are either, mobility impaired in their legs or amputees, things like that. You're sticking these guys and women into modified, essentially buckets that have ice skate blades underneath. You can change the width of the blades, which, allow you to maybe turn faster or give you more stability. And then you get around the ice holding a stick in each of your hands.
Mm,
And at the back of the stick, there's going to be kind of almost like little like spikes that you're
mm,
going to use to dig into the ice and propel yourself across the ice. And then you have a conventional blade, right? At the toe of the stick, you have one that's going to curve obviously to the right side and one that's going to curve to the left side. And like
mm,
you asked, yeah, the biggest difference to say an able-bodied hockey player is probably that you're going to be shooting on both sides of your body, as
mm,
opposed to in able-bodied hockey, right? You're going to be sticking to either shooting from the left side or from the right side. At least your stick curve is going to be on one side or the other, right? You have your backhand, you have your forehand. But on sled hockey, you're shooting from kind of four different sides of your stick. You have
mm.
the backhand and the forehand of your dominant hand, and you have the backhand and forehand of your non-dominant hand, and you're shooting from each. So
Wow, wow. That man, I know I've seen it in person and it's just it's one of those
wow.
things where um when you look at, players, especially at the highest levels, and we're talking, at the Paralympic level, the best players in the world, it like looks second nature. It just looks so natural. It looks as if, they can just do it in their sleep. Um, and the Winter Paralympics just ending this past weekend, but just the success, if you will, of the current USA team, um, five straight gold medals, like that just, I think for any, whether you're a sports fan, non-sports fan, just that just seems ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It's an incredible run. I think it speaks to two things. I think it speaks to kind of the heritage and the generation, before these past few teams, they set the bar very, very high. And for all of the kind of younger people that were around at the time watching those teams, that was, what you grew up watching. You grew up watching a dominant US sled hockey program. And that has just kind of continued on into the present. There's been so much development and so much kind of emphasis on reaching players at a young age to try to get them to different, training camps, to get to various places around the country for tournaments to be looked at by scouts, different things like that. There's a big, big emphasis on player development, almost very similar to wheelchair basketball, in my
Mm,
opinion, where you really have kind of this legacy that goes back a few years, this winning legacy, this kind of winning DNA that ends up, the new generation inherits. And I think that's what we've been seeing. There's just been it's dominant is probably an understatement, if I could say that, because
mm,
they have been so just amazing with
mm.
how they play together, with how they play, as a team. They play team hockey, and I mean, obviously the results are there. So
Man, it's just been incredible and cool to watch. And I know one of the tough things, and I know it's similar um, for wheelchair basketball. It's tough to get some attention on the sport outside of the Paralympic Games because, of course, during the Paralympics, everybody's kind of glued to the sport and gets excited about it. Um, and one of the things that I know on the basketball side, we're really trying to do, especially in the US, is get people to get interested when there are, other kind of big national events or big kind of collegiate events or what have you. Can you talk a little bit just about what sled hockey um, is trying to do to like build more interest outside of just kind of the USA track and the Paralympic track?
yeah, I mean, there's been a lot more emphasis, particularly, I mean, obviously in the United States, right, where we can be very regional with our sports. So, on the East Coast, in New England, places like that, you're gonna probably see a little bit more going into trying to, maybe bring a camera to be able to stream a game, things like that. Out on the West Coast, and as you get further away from the East Coast, we still have some ways to go. But I think with USA Hockey and some of the things that they're trying to do to try to get more exhibition games streaming online, to get more kind of behind the scenes when camps are going and get
Mm,
that content online, I think they're really, really figuring out, okay, the internet, it can be a very useful tool for exposure. It can be a very useful tool for recruitment. And we need to figure out ways that we can really, really kind of drill down and get as much content out there for kids, prospective kids who may be interested in the sport. And I think that, little by little, they're trying to do that. As we all know, the internet, social media, these things can be very, very powerful tools,
mm,
and it's just a matter sometime of uploading the content. So I think
mm,
as people realize more and more, hey, there is there's a demand for this, whether it's, little clips on YouTube or various things like that. There's a demand for this type of content from able-bodied people, from disabled people, because it's just an interesting sport and they're interesting events, not just sled hockey, but many of the events
Mm,
in the Winter Games and the Summer Games. We're starting to see people really kind of come around to the idea that the internet is a very useful tool if used and implemented in the right ways. And I think it's just, like I said, just a matter of time of, just getting more cameras and things like that to the rinks and getting that content on the web.
I love it. As the last question on this topic, can you just sports for us, and you know, in the disability movement, sometimes we try to figure out like what are things that give folks with disabilities a sense of purpose, a sense of joy, belonging. Um, I always talk about, for me, that was, wheelchair sports for me was just that. It was, oh, I get to meet a whole bunch of other kids that have disabilities like me. Let me, kind of connect with them, and it kind of blew my mind and opened up a whole new world of opportunity to connect with not just disabled kids in the Bay and in Northern California, but then, of course, we got a chance even in high school to travel all over the country and meet, some amazing folks all over the place who we still stay connected with to this day. So can you talk just a little bit about the impact that sports has had on your life, participating in sports, being able to watch sports, just your involvement and just how it's impacted you?
It's impacted me huge. As you said, I mean, even the relationships. I mean, look at you and I. I mean, we're talking right now, and we first met each other on a basketball tournament to Texas, as 16-year-olds. So there's a huge component of, camaraderie, of friendship, of relationships. And I think that's very important for a lot of people. That might be the biggest thing that they are looking for. And I think you need that initially, right? And for some people, that's going to be enough. For some people, they're going to say, hey, I think I want to go another level. I want to try to make the Paralympics. I want to try to do this or that. But that's, your foray into the world. I think for a lot of kids, it's, can I be around people that are maybe going through the same things or similar things that I'm going through right now? Can we find common ground as athletes? And from there, right, how far can I take this if I want to do that? And I think it's important that disabled athletes have those options, right? Where, hey, maybe I want to just go out and have some fun and get some exercise. And there's going to be people that say, hey, I really, really am into this and I want to see how far I can go and how
Mhm.
much I can push myself as an athlete. And I think all these things are very important, right? That's how you first pull in maybe kids is to get them to just try a sport, have fun, and that's where you're going to get your future Paralympians. That's where you're going to get your future medalists. And I think those grassroots kind of levels of the game, whether it's basketball, whether it's sled hockey, whether it's monoskiing, I think that's very important, and that's what initially brought me in, and that's what's important after you're done playing your sport. We can't play sports forever. Those relationships that you create, those friendships, those are important things that you may keep for your entire life. So I think it's the whole thing is fantastic, and those were important things to me as well.
Man, that's exactly right. I say all the time, and of course, as you just said, there are so many different levels. It's, folks who want to just kind of get involved, folks who want to play recreationally. I haven't met any more competitive people than wheelchair athletes, adaptive athletes at the highest levels. Those people can be competitive to the levels of just like, any Kobe Bryant, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Patrick Mahomes, like those guys who on a professional level are amazing and super competitive. And these folks that we're talking about are as competitive as any of them. Of course, Asia Wilson, amazing high levels of talent on the able-bodied side in terms of sports. I haven't met, folks who are more competitive than some of the Paralympic athletes, whether it be folks who are still participating or folks who participated even years ago and still have, that itch of wanting to be involved and just like still love their sport. So I really appreciate, you diving in to the Paralympics and kind of getting us going with the sled hockey information as well. I want to transition just a little bit. You and I have talked about film for a really long time. The importance of disability representation, obviously people of color being represented, obviously women being represented. Um, we just had the Oscars this past weekend, and it was, you know, really cool to see the results. I mean, we get excited about the Academy Awards every year, whether there are 10 great movies that, are going to be featured or whether it's, a couple. But can you just talk a little bit about the importance when it comes to film, television, of having disabled people both in front of and behind the camera?
I look at movies as being a cross section of kind of human existence. In my opinion, it's you have just this cross section of stories: male, female, black, white, American, non-American. I mean, it's a story in it's a story of us in many ways,
Mhm.
right? Acted out on the screen. You can't have a cross section of humanity without all of humanity being represented, in my opinion.
Mhm.
You have to be able to tell stories of everyone and not just people that are bipedal and kind of walking around. You
Mhm.
have to, try to have everyone be represented in some sort of way. I think it's important for disabled actors to be seen. I think it's important for disabled filmmakers to be working. Um, and I think it's just going to create a more rich experience for the art form of cinema, right? If you have everyone participating in their ways, big or small. So I think it's
Mhm.
very important. I think it's very important. I think representation, as we all know, it matters. When a person sees a representation of themselves on screen, it's an important thing. And we're seeing it now with even people behind the screen. I mean, you talk about people like Ryan Coogler that people draw a ton of inspiration from. I think it's very, very important that we have proper representation of disabled people in film, in TV, and I will never, ever, ever say otherwise. So
Mhm. Yeah, no, it's really been fascinating to observe. Um, and from your perspective, I mean, we've had films like Coda, have Academy Award winners. You mentioned Ryan Coogler, of course, Oakland's finest, and not just representing the black community, but he's talked, openly about his stutter and kind of um um how he's navigated speaking, especially in public. Um would you say just kind of like where we've kind of come from, like where we are maybe now and moving forward, that we're in a better place when it comes to disability representation? I know, for example, like The Pit, for example, the show The Pit on HBO has a lot of disability representation, whether it's deaf folks, whether it's wheelchair users, whether it's autistic folks. Would you say we're in a better place now than we've been when it comes to disability representation?
I think so. I think we are. I think that we can't get complacent, right? There's so much more that needs to be done. There's so much more that we can do, and so much room further that we can move. But I do think that people are beginning to be conscious of certain decisions that they're making, both in front of the camera and behind. to, not not necessarily, just allow people to come in just because they're disabled, but giving people who are qualified, who are disabled, the opportunity to prove and show what they can do. I think that's very important. I think we've come a long way, and I think we have much more that we can do. But it is very, it's a positive thing to see, as you say, shows like The Pit with Noah Wiley, things like that. It's very positive to see that people in the writers' rooms, people behind the camera, are thinking about these things and acting upon them and trying to implement and place certain things into the show. And I think that's very important, man.
Mm-mm. And you know, I think one of the things that we've certainly talked about and something that I know disabled people really care about is there is that kind of fine line where it's like we don't want to be tokenized. We don't want to be in a situation where somebody's disability is like their only, attribute on a show, for example. Or what have you. It's we want to be as complex in terms of characters as anybody else with or without a disability. And you know, having disabled people, as you talked about at the beginning of the process, so that we don't get to a situation where, the show is, halfway through development and then they're like, man, we should add, a wheelchair user in this, and they just throw somebody in, but that there's actually a thought process early on. Well, this is how we want to actually fully develop people, fully develop story, all of those sorts of things. So can you talk just a little bit about that? And especially, you are a storyteller. You are somebody who really thinks about these things from the very beginning.
I appreciate that, E. Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it should be a situation where, for example, with casting, with actors, you know, if you're doing something and you are looking for talent who happens to be disabled, there are people out there. It's a
Mhm.
matter of casting that net and giving people the opportunity to come in and show what they can do. There's a lot of talented actors who are disabled, who are wheelchair users, and are completely serious and adamant about their craft,
Mhm.
about taking opportunities and doing the best with those opportunities and showing, I am an actor first before I'm maybe a disabled person in this audition. I
Mhm.
think those are very important things. It's the same thing behind the camera. We're starting to see, a generation of people who are disabled, who are talking about disability on film. And it's important that we give time to those voices, that we give interest to those voices, um, because those are important stories to to be out in the world. Those are important stories for people to be exposed to. Um, and Like I said, it's a matter of casting a net large enough so that you can bring in talented people who happen to be disabled. And it's a matter of, okay, is this something that we consciously want to do, or are we going to kind of do it halfway? And I think most people at this point, those are things that they're thinking about, and it's good to see situations where people are being, being thoughtful and genuine in those intentions to bring in disabled people, whether it's in front of the camera or behind. So
That's right. That's right. Well, and it's funny because I know we could have a whole full show just talking about the Academy Awards. The Academy Awards is a fun kind of just celebration of film for the year, and the the awardees, the folks who get the awards, but all the folks involved in the Academy Awards, we get excited for, and we know that that's career changing, life changing stuff. So that could be its own separate show. You and I, of course, can talk about it. But there is one awardee that I did want to bring up because a lot of people got super excited about it, and feel free to nerd out a little bit on it if you'd like to. I want to talk about the cinematography winner, Autumn Durald Arkapaw, from California, woman of color, first woman to win the award ever. A lot of folks, might not know what cinematography exactly is, but or the importance of cinematography to a film, especially a film at that level with Sinners. Um, but it seemed like just in interviews and in conversation that she essentially was Ryan Coogler's like right hand person. Like she was locked in with his mindset, with his vision. So can you just talk a little bit about cinematography, and what, why that was such a monumental win?
Yeah, I mean, just to give an abbreviated kind of explanation of what cinematography is to people who may not be familiar, it's essentially is the actual photography of your film, right? It's the choosing of lenses, it's the choosing of filters, it's the selection of certain lights to put up. That's going to enhance your scene, and the person who leads all of that is going to be your director of photography. And in this case, obviously, we saw at the Oscars, Autumn Durand Akapar. She was the cinematography director of photography for Sinners. I think she's incredible. She's a person that I was, familiar with a bit before this, um, and it seems to me Ryan Coogler, another one of his director of photography, a lady named Rachel Morrison, who was amazing herself as well.
Mm.
Ryan seems to have a prowess for finding directors of photography that really complement the stories that he wants to tell, that complement the way that he likes to work. And it seemed like a match made in heaven, right? For this this past movie. I mean, the goal obviously is to just, for some filmmakers, is just to get to the finish line, right? To just finish your movie on time, on budget, right? I think it's probably in most people's wildest dreams to actually win an Oscar for
Mm.
a film that you've made. I think it's probably always on the back of your mind, but for it to actually happen, I mean, it's fantastic. It's wonderful. First woman of color, first woman to win the award, I believe, if I'm not wrong. And I
Mm.
think she did a fantastic job. Obviously, these days with cinematography, a lot of it is kind of mixed down with a lot of visual effects and things like that.
Mhm.
The way that she handled everything that was on her plate, her workload, handling the photography of the film, handling how they were going to implement the visual effects in the film, which Sinners has a lot, which people I don't know if they're totally aware. I think most people think of heavy visual effects. I think of Marvel movie, things like that. But there
Right.
was a lot of visual effects that was implemented in Sinners, and a lot of that was directly tied into cinematography. So I think she did a
Mm.
fantastic job, and I think that she and Ryan, clearly they made a fantastic team.
Man, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I wanted to give you a chance to nerd out on that topic for sure, because I got excited about it, and I know you did as well. So we're gonna kind of tie things off a little bit here. Uh, I have two final questions, and it kind of sometimes catches folks a little bit off guard, but I know you're on your toes, so I know you'll be ready for it. Uh, First question. What is a piece of media, music, book, show, film that you are super excited about right now that you would want folks to tune into or to check out? And just talk a little bit about it.
Oh man, yeah, you put me on the spot. I didn't know it was on my toes that much. Um, let's see. That's a good question, E. I have recently been into, and I've been kind of revisiting Ken Burns' last documentary on the Revolutionary War, the United States. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend it. I think it's fantastic. Ken Burns is an amazing filmmaker. Kind of a documentary is his lane. He did an amazing job. And I watched it the first time. I went through, watched it again, and I'm a history nerd. If you're into that, I would absolutely recommend it. That was a project that I've been really, really excited about. When it was announced, I was really excited, and I've been watching that and kind of revisiting certain parts of that documentary series.
Love it, love it. No, Ken Burns is one of one. You know what I mean? It's like
One of a kind.
if you get into some of the work that he's done, whether it's on the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, baseball, I think he has one on jazz. Prohibition, just some amazing work. And I think he's still, coming up with new stories to tell, new documentaries to put out there. So I appreciate that you lifted his work up for sure. Um, and then the final question, your game plan for the rest of the year for 2026. What is Shay's game plan? It can involve personal stuff, work stuff, advocacy, whatever you just feel, kind of compelled to lean into this year.
The thing that I'm going to be leaning into is I think I have been really, really, really impressed with some of the other events. I'm just kind of taking it back to the Paralympics.
Mm,
Usually when I'm watching the Winter Paralympics, I'm almost just tunnel vision on sled hockey. There was other events that I got the opportunity, as we were talking with the streaming on Peacock, got an opportunity to take a deep dive on.
mm,
And I think that's probably going to be part of what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the year, particularly as we get closer to the winter again. Watching
mm,
some of the other events like mono skiing, I'm really, really into. I think it's a
mm.
fantastic sport. And that's going to be part of what I do for the rest of the year is to really start to learn about some of these athletes and some of the other sports that I got exposure to and got to really take a deep dive on this past Paralympics. So I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more research and trying to find more stuff on YouTube and getting more acquainted with some of these other disabled sports.
I love it. I love it. Well, Shay, I really appreciate you and just appreciate you coming in and dropping knowledge for so many folks who are into sports, some who might not be into sports but have learned a lot, film, all the issues. I know that you're a man of many interests. So just appreciate you joining us on the game plan, man. It means the world.
Thank you for having me, my man. As always, my brother, I appreciate it. And again, thank you guys for having me. And you guys, fantastic show, man. Always.
Cool. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Well, have a good one, man.
This has been The Game Plan, a production of Disability Rights California. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the platform of your choice. See you next time.